welcome to Insurasales Live. We got Gaylan Hendricks, the queen of the bundle, as you call yourself now.
I think everybody else called me that.
Or as it's called now, rock star in our industry. And what a lot of people don't know is Gaylan and I have known each other a long time. Do you remember when we first met?
I do. It was a Great American trip, and it was in Puerto Vallarta.
That's what Taylor said too.
That's when I first met you. Well, let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
That's the first time you made a impact on me, because you had called my hotel room and said, "Hey, we're having a party up here. You need to come on up." And my husband goes, "There's some guy by the name of Brandon Todd calling your room and wanting you to come up to his party." So that's why I remember that as our first meeting. But when did we first meet?
We met in Indianapolis on Conseco trips.
The top 26?
We were in all these different Conseco things. We went several times.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
We went to the Pacers game.
Yeah,
because I was sat front row together.
Yeah, and I went down once. I saw Larry Bird down there.
Larry Bird?
One of y'all came up and gave me a ticket. Yeah, because at the time he was managing the Pacers at the time. And he was sitting next to Tony Dungy. And I wanted to talk to Tony Dungy because of Peyton. And so one of y'all, now that's coming back, one of y'all gave me your ticket because we had to switch back and forth.
We were switching back and forth,
that's
right? Because they only had two.
See, I do have a memory.
Taylor and I went down together. That's when I first met Taylor. And so we were sitting on the floor together, and then we had to, like, every quarter, I think we had to come back and get to someone else, and we went back to the booth, and then they went back.
Okay, well, you have a better memory than me. Everybody calls me the hawk.
Yeah.
You have a memory like a hawk. You don't forget what we've done. You don't forget what we do. But, yeah, that
And I also
good.
heard about you a long time before that, and
really?
I heard about your husband.
Oh.
Yeah, and I just
was it
heard
good?
your representation. Well, yeah, the Gaylan's just such a unique name. Yeah, that you were, and you weren't the Gaylan Hendricks you are now, and I was the Brandon Todd I am now, but you were like coming up and like really making waves and doing a good job with what you were doing and all that, and people were talking about you. And then Gaylan's is not that common of a name, so when
I always say it's like Sharon Reba.
That Gaylan lady I keep hearing about.
Yeah, it's like Sharon Reba. Once you get it, you remember it.
And then magically, you and Taylor were together.
Well, so Taylor was one that I helped hire in the business, and David Chambers I hired in the business.
Yeah.
But when Taylor came along in 2001, he had been a fraternity brother of the Dales. That's a name that's kind of under the cover right now.
Talk about them anymore.
Yeah, but
I don't know the rules.
I don't either. I don't have any, as you know, and that's probably either what keeps me out in front of the camera or behind the closed doors. I'm not sure which.
For y'all, right before we came in, we started saying, well, maybe we shouldn't tell some old stories. Like, we don't care. We are who we are at this point.
No, we don't. And, I think the funny thing is when you've been around for 37 years, I celebrated 37 years in this industry on May the 12th. And I'm like, there are people walking around here that aren't even 30. And I'm like, Lord, I'm that person that I used to see when I was coming up in the business. But, it's been a really interesting last 2 years especially. And everybody goes, is that because of COVID? I don't think it's just because of COVID. I think it's a lot because of just people changing. I think Facebook has had a lot to do with that. There's a lot of these influencers out there, and everybody goes, are you talking about me? Or are you talking about me? I'm talking about all of y'all, for the record, myself included. I think we get so caught up in what we think we're supposed to be that we don't do what we did when we first started out, and that is just work.
Right.
Stay out of everybody's business. And, growing up in this business, there were a lot of people that were just mean to each other. And so that's one of the reasons why when I kind of left the underage 65 for a little bit, and people think I left writing underage 65 business. I have never not written underage 65 business. I've always written it. But I took myself out of that sphere of influence of people because they were so mean to each other. Nobody was saying anything nice about anybody. So I loved hanging around all the messed up people because they were all so nice and they were encouraging and they wanted to help people. And, everybody shared, and everybody invited everybody to everybody's party. And then I find myself today in that industry going, maybe we all need to go back over to the underage 65 space and start the camaraderie of being good and kind. And I know, like last week.
Are you saying there's a deficit there?
Oh, I think there's a huge deficit. It's like last week when you were out there just friend requesting people, and I see everybody going, who's this guy? Who's this guy? And I'm like, why do you care? I mean, you take friend requests from people all the way across the world that don't have anything to do with our business, but you're wondering about the very guy that's been around forever in the business.
But they don't know me.
But that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They see you've got common friends. That's the number one thing everybody does on Facebook. They look to see if you got common friends. And if you do, and if you're not peddling for leads or peddling for, the newest, greatest, I don't know, microchip. It seems like every CRM now has got a microchip that everybody needs. It's kind of like RoboCop, right? I'm like, dude, everybody copies everybody in this business. It's part of this life. I get copied every day. But that just tells me I've got to create something new the next day. I don't worry about it.
Well, you have the abundance mindset. I mean, that's the abundance. Like, if I have something that helps people in their career and other things, if I give that away, it'll come back to me in spades. But even if it doesn't, it's still the right thing to do, to share and to give.
Well, it's just like last night. I said, welcome back, brother. And a while ago, you go, I've been around. And I go, but where have you been? And you said you didn't need it.
I said, you said, it's nice to have you back. And I said, it's nice to be back.
Yeah.
And I can go deeper with that if you want.
Well, I think we should. I mean, I think there's two things there. I think, one, you made the perfect answer right there. You said, I was just doing my own thing, keeping in my own lane, being my own person. That is probably something everybody watching this could say, I need to do that. I need to do more of that. But you've always been a generous person. Taylor and I were talking about that not too long ago. I mean, I think that if anybody and everybody really knew the Brandon Todd we know, they would hear generosity. They would hear work well together. They would hear have a lot of fun. I mean, at one time we all drank too much, right? I mean, we all did things that we probably shouldn't have done.
Didn't, I took up their slack.
But you know what? How cool is it that we're in an industry where people actually go, that's cool, whatever you want to do. Yeah. I think that I was in a women in leadership meeting yesterday, and one of my very, very best friends in this business, another one of those that just flies under the radar, but would help anybody that asked. She's been sober for 8 years, and she told everybody in that leadership class yesterday, she said, I will tell you, I have struggled with anxiety my entire life. And getting in front of people, being in front of people, it would just bring this nervousness about me that would create this where I needed to go drink.
To have a drink, to calm the anxiety.
And I'm sitting there, and I've known this woman forever, and I've heard her talk about that for years, but I think being able to be that forthcoming and what that might have done for someone else's soul and heart that might have been sitting in that very audience that struggles with the same thing. How cool is that? So that's where I like Facebook. That's where I like influencers who put people on and interview them and come up with this stuff, because that's the stuff that helps people, makes our business where everybody wants to be in it. And God knows we got plenty of room.
Yeah, for sure.
You hear some of these influencers out there and it's like, oh my gosh, there's only this much room for everybody. There's not.
Well, they're looking at their world.
Yeah.
I've influenced this many people. I have this many people in my circle. Get out of my circle. I've worked hard for it.
Right.
I own this. And you as an FMO, one of the best FMOs out there, I would argue. You and Taylor, just your business has been just one of those pillars that we need.
Thank you.
The reason I say that, though, is because in my experiences, you don't feel like you own the agent.
No.
And there's so many out there who feel like They go out and say, these are my agents. I own these agents. You know, they go, I have 10,000 agents. Well, you have a few writing.
You know why that is? I've been a
that.
victim of that.
Yeah.
I've been a victim where I couldn't be released for a certain contract now going back 22 years. I just got released this last year. And I'm sorry. I think that is just absolutely insane.
Yep.
And, you know, the thing is, it's like divorce. You know, I've seen some really good divorces out there, and I give Taylor a lot of credit in that regard. I mean, when he got divorced, it's hard. It's never easy to get divorced. But he has one of the best divorces I've ever seen. I think being able to have that friendliness for your children. And I think the way we need to look at some of these releases is that maybe it's just time for a divorce right now, but we could be friends again and we could build on that later. And how cool is that for our industry to be able to say, look, this just might not be our time, but there could be a time down the road. Because I'll tell you guys that are watching, and gals too, for those of you that don't know me, I use the word guys all the time. Doesn't matter if you're a guy or a gal, I'm a guy when I say guys and gals. But
do we have to say that now?
You know, I'm as I said from the stage yesterday, I'm so over the box. I'm so over everybody's got to be in a box.
Right.
Based on your color, you got to be in a box. Based on your creed, you got to be in a box. Based on your sex, you got to be in a box. And the truth of the matter is, I've really been quoting John Lennon a lot here lately. I just think we ought to see us as one. That's the way God sees us. That's the way I want to see us. That's the way I think we should start seeing our agents. I think that's the way we should start seeing our children and grandchildren. You know, peace is something everybody's wanted. I mean, right? On Miss Congeniality, the movie, I want world peace. Well, while that's unrealistic,
right,
we can get kind,
right,
and we should. You know, at this part in my life, I mean, I can't believe I said this from the stage yesterday. Most people can believe it because I don't care. But, you know, I turned 59 in a week and a half. And
happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you. And I can't believe it. I mean, I don't feel it. I feel younger every day because of the people I get to hang out with. I think a lot of this, like what you're doing for people, I know it's not cheap to set up this kind of equipment. I know it's not cheap to get this here. I know it's not cheap to sponsor a conference. And everybody looks at it and they take it for granted. I think what you've set up here this year is just really admirable. I think it shows that you really want to make a difference in the industry. And those of us that have been in this a while, we all should take that challenge. We need to make a difference. And I don't mean a difference bad. I mean a difference good. A difference of, look, I want to leave this a better place than I came into it. And when you wake up and you start finding it to be the place that you left, it's like, we need to fix this. And I think there's a lot of us that can do that. And that's my hope. You know, my hope is to form a committee.
What does that look like to you? What does a fixed insurance industry look like to you?
So I want to form a committee or a club or a group, whatever we want to call it. And I want it to be the positive position makers. I want us to take a positive position on, look, we'll agree to release. If it's truly in the agent's best interest, we'll agree to release. We'll agree to make this place a more humanistic, kind place so that when we're going out there and recruiting, if I release an agent to you, but we all together create a kind format, then I'm going to get 2 more out of that. If you release one to me, you're going to get 2 or 3 out of it. And I think if we start taking that approach and competition is what keeps us healthy. So we need to be okay with competing. And that's one of the things I love about Integrity Marketing Group. You know, I said that from the stage yesterday, is that, you know, we all compete with each other, but we're still one family. And isn't that how your own personal family is? Don't you compete with siblings? I compete with my siblings.
Right.
You know, when we sit down to play a game of Monopoly with the grandkids, they want to whoop my butt. But that's what keeps it fun. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah, and that's what drives us. That's what drives us is to compete against each other. But when we come to events like this and what I'm doing with Insurasales, CRM, AMS, all these things, just to lift us to a different level to compete on. So if we can just take care of all the nuance and BS that we have to deal with every day, normalize those things, why hold that to myself? Why not put that out there? All these problems are solved for us. Now let's go take care of the people side of it. It's all we're good at anyway. And and conferences like this help and bring us together. Let's bring each other up. Now we'll compete from up here. That seems to be the way for me. I want to ask you about you brought up releases and the tendency for FMOs to try to control our own contracts with people. There are some legitimate reasons, like you bring someone up and you invest a lot of money in their
debit balance
for all those things, that you wouldn't want that.
Sure.
But would you go as far as saying that in general, without that we should have open release policies, agent directed?
Well, I think that we've absolutely created that with all the carriers that we sit on the advisory councils. That's where we came up with the 6-month rule. Yeah. I think the 6-month rule is a good release policy situation because it does allow you to get back the debit balance that they may have. It allows you to be able, if you have invested money in that agent, to be able to say, look, maybe you just got hot-headed. Maybe you just got ticked off at me. Maybe I didn't hear you. Maybe I didn't do something right. It gives you 6 months to work that out. And I call it the cooling off period. Because there's just not two people that get along 100% of the time, right? But I think if you've got an FMO in there and they're just like, we're going to own you the rest of your life, that's just not fair. And because you wouldn't want that.
Well, I've been stuck in those contracts too, where I would have to take my whole center down and stop producing, my whole downline down to stop producing, to get out of those contracts and take pretty much the death penalty.
Yeah.
And then I could reappoint and get a direct FMO contract.
Yeah.
But the carriers, like these FMOs, help feed us for a long time, and they weren't doing anything for us. In fact, when we launched Medigap 360 in our technology and training, if we had to talk to anyone at the FMOs, well, they would slow us down way. Well, we have some kind of technology.
But why were you wanting a release?
We're doing these things. Well, you get the bigger contract, you have the better spread to work with.
But
you can deal directly with the home office without them saying call this person, because you need to deal directly with the carriers.
So let's break that down. So you said a lot of stuff there. So the first thing I want to break down is most of the time I have found, because we work with large organizations, but we start them off at the absolute highest contract that the carrier gives. So the one thing that I think Taylor and I get a really good reputation on is we're not greedy. The second thing we get a really good reputation on is we're serving. We're out there training. We're out there bringing value. No. And so we make sure we're there. The carriers aren't set up to take all those calls, and that's why they've set us in place. But I do think what you said right there was important. It's like one of the main reasons I wanted to get a release is because they weren't helping me. Well, if they're not helping you, they don't deserve you.
Right. Well, that's the point. Or they're incapable of helping. When I was running a 170-person operation, I'm calling an FMO that has 20, 30 people in it and doesn't have near the sophistication on most levels that we have. Now I got to talk to them. They just hired a new guy who's going to talk to me and then try to call the carrier and then call me back, when I have seasoned people who have been here 10 years who can call that carrier or the agent services line direct, get things done, call the higher ups if we need to, and I do that with other carriers.
Yeah, and a lot of times,
people, they want to hold you back.
Yeah,
No,
a lot of times it's business, for that carrier. But I will say this.
But the carriers want it too. They don't want to upset that top.
Well, that's where I was going with it. It's that, they're in a place they've not been in. They are in a place right now where they're trying to figure out, how do we keep service at an all-time high, especially when we're getting all of our business in a 6-week period? Right? And so I think ancillaries changed a lot of that. I think that's why we have the relationships that we do with all the people that we service, is because I'm constantly calling people and going, hey, when can I get in there? When can I train your people? When I can help your people? And a lot of these FMOs that are out there, they had to learn to trust me. They had to learn, me going in and recruiting your people is not what I'm there for.
Right.
I've been there, done that.
Right.
I'm in there to accentuate our relationship by getting your people successful.
Right.
And almost anybody I've talked to at your
You're
level.
working with a lot of them on the ancillary products and things like that.
And
so-
Medicare
Yeah.
and under age 65. A lot of them don't know why under age 65 is so important. But we've come into these operations, whether it's a call center, career force, or just an independent that's got a lot of agents. We try to make a value proposition. And isn't that what marriage is about? You got to give to get. You got to get to give. And I feel like that we do that. And I think that there are some FMOs out there that get aggravated at us because they're like, well, we don't have that. And I'm like, but you have other value add though.
Right.
Maybe you can help on lead dollars. Maybe you can help on marketing dollars. Maybe you can help on, another way of investing into those people. But the other thing I think a lot of people have not realized is that carriers have cut our contracts. So we don't have the spreads we once used to have because we are trying to build people up. But there are some of these older ones out there that they've had to learn how to move people in. But I think I've created stuff where our other FMOs have started competing with us. I mean, there's trips out there now.
Yeah.
Like I've got call centers doing trips for their people.
Yeah.
And they don't leave when they're being treated right. So I've just learned if you're treating people right, you stay in that marriage.
Yeah.
If you're not, you don't.
So what would you say is unique to what you guys do compared to other FMOs in this?
Well, I think one is communication. I think two is our Colonial event. We bring in all of the best to our Colonial event, and we invite the carriers to it. Everybody loves
What's
it.
a Colonial event?
Well, now you're going to know because you're back. But we invite everybody once a year to the Colonial Golf event in Fort Worth.
Okay.
But we spend 2 days before that just really basically fellowship and socializing and having a good time. But we're also, it's like I said yesterday, we're at the bars. We're talking deals. We're talking about what we can help you with. We're talking about how to increase your ROIs. We're talking about how we can help you increase your lifetime value because especially people in the position you were in years ago and today, I mean, you needed more money to bring in more business. And most of the time that's learning how to create new selling opportunities. And that's what we've created. We've created a very simple how-to.
I never found the need for more money help.
Well,
I never think I always thought I was in a skill deficit more than a money deficit. But
I don't
and the
agree
reason
with
why-
that.
Well, where I was,
You were skilled.
I didn't have the skill when I was in the pole position on telesales and Medicare. I didn't have the skill set to scale an organization. I tried my best. I did really good, but I hit a ceiling. I hit a really hard ceiling.
And a lot of people
couple times.
did at that time.
Right. But
So you're right there.
I thought I was going to be a trillionaire. And if you would have given
And
me
you're
10
not?
No,
We
not
thought you
yet.
were.
That's why I moved to the islands, right? No, but had I taken $10 million there, had someone offered it to me to try to blow this thing up, I don't think I would have handled it well.
I don't think I would have taken it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I wouldn't have taken it then and why I wouldn't take it now.
Yeah. That's where I want to go.
There's two things there. One is as soon as you can go as earned on your contracts, the better off you are. Especially if you're in Medicare and Med Advantage. It's a very commodity-driven business. And I've even started coaching a lot of our agencies on the 3-year advance and on the 2-year advances and the 1-year advances, depending on where they're at in skill set. When you're in a commodity-driven business in a 12-month plan area, which
That's
a lot of
becoming more and more of, right?
a lot of people they forget a very important component of investing in their business and financing their business. Med Advantage is a 12-month plan. People are going to change every 12 months. And agents will go, no, I have agents doing the same thing every day, clients doing the same thing. Okay, I understand if the company offers it, they may stay there. But the company has their right to change that plan every 12 months. So that Med Advantage plan could leave the market. It doesn't mean that they get a new guaranteed issue
Right.
because they've got another plan to offer.
Right.
But it might have less benefits. It might cost more premium. So that jacks with your business model. MedSup, obviously, CSG has brought a tool to the market where in these big call centers, they can literally see all these different movements in the market, and they know they're going to replace that business, and they know when people are aging in, they're going to be able to get the newest, greatest rate that's out there.
Right.
So what I tell agents and agencies right now, the more you invest in ancillary, guaranteed renewable plans for life, the better off you are. And the younger you go get that client, the better off you are, because your lifetime value on that client, if you get them at age 50 versus age 60, you've earned 10 more years on that client. That's your money if you're as earned. If you go borrow it from somebody, the $10 million example you use, well, the people that are giving you the $10 million, all they care about is profitability.
Right.
They don't care about the client on the phone.
No.
They care about the profitability. They're an investor.
Right. Put a dollar in, get $2 back.
And that's what they should care about.
Right.
I'm not knocking their MO.
Right.
I'm just saying for the person running the agency, they need to understand their investor's MO.
Right.
So the sooner you can get on as earned, the better off you are, because then your business EBITDA or your business P&L or your business balance sheet, and they're all pretty much one and the same, right?
Right.
The more you borrow, the worse your cash price is going to be when you go to sell.
Right.
And almost all of these career organizations and call centers are positioning themselves to sell. But every year they look at what they brought in, and every year it's like, oh, I got to make up that deficit. I got to make up that deficit. I got to make up that deficit. And that's where you see a lot of the agency release problem. That's where you see a lot of people wanting to change FMOs because they're like, hey, this FMO is going to give me this FMO is going to give me that. But that's also a 12-month thing, because that FMO doesn't know he's going to get those same marketing dollars the next year. So I think it's really...
And they often use those to recruit the next group of talent. Now they got you locked into the contract.
Well, and that's why I tell everybody, and I do think this is a very important thing, well, a very important reason Taylor and I are successful. We get accused of all the time of being overly transparent, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I know some people find that as, oh, you're not the good old boy, you're not this, you're not that, but if you're 100% transparent up front,
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about releases for the most part. There's also a place where you can still be partners on other things. So even though you may not be in a relationship with this particular carrier, you can still be partners in other carrier relationships. And what I really want to focus on going forward is how to make everybody whole. And that doesn't mean you all get the top deal. That's not what that means. It's how do we be partners? You know, I don't like the word downlines. I think it's degrading. I don't like being called a downline.
Or do you like being called an upline?
I don't.
No, right.
I like being called a partner.
Right.
And I love that Integrity has that in everything they say. I think when you feel that you're part of something, that's what I think makes marriage work. When you really feel like you have a part in the relationship,
Right.
then you feel like you can communicate about anything. You know, when Taylor and I first started, my deal with him was, look, you've worked here now for 6-8 months, let's be partners. I don't know if this is going to be fair to me in 6 months. I don't know if it's going to be fair to you in 6 months. Let's sit back down and talk about how we make it fair. And we've done that now for 21 years.
You could have stayed his boss. Mm-hmm. Now, this is interesting.
Well, not his boss, but in terminology at that point, upline.
You could have been his upline, okay.
Yeah.
So he wasn't working in your office at the time? Or
he was but
in
he
your
was
office as an
building
employee,
his
or-
own agency
Okay,
at
he
the
was
time.
building his own
He
thing,
worked
okay.
for me at one time, but when I went out on my own, he was going to go out on his own a year later. And I said, why don't you just come over here and see what you think of this? And he goes, I like that idea. Because he goes, you and I have always worked well together. And, you know, but and it didn't have to be 6 months.
But
it could have been 2
I'll add
months.
something to this, because in 1997, my dad brought me in. We started. He had trained me. I was doing well my first year. I I told Dad, I said, you're great at training agents. Let's get an office. Let's start training some agents. Let's build an agency. You're good at that. I'm young. I'll figure out the business side. We'll hustle. We'll make it happen. He said, okay, but we're going to, and he could have been the boss, but he said, you'll be my partner in this. 50-50. And for a 21-year-old kid to have, Frank Todd as his partner made me feel like I had something, like I was something.
Yeah.
And we're partners, to this day. We talk about what good partners.
Well, it's loyalty, and it's also.
But it changes the dynamic of how you feel. And a 21-year-old kid, he could have taken the override. He could have kept me there, and there could have been that hierarchy in there. He chose not to, and it was probably the best movie ever made.
Well, and Taylor and I had built a really big organization where we'd been before, and then we built another big organization just to get knocked down by the do not call list. And Taylor was nervous, I was nervous, but we came back after that Christmas and we created a way that we could be successful. And then years later, we brought in my daughter-in-law and then my son, and they've been very integral in our relationships. They do very well in our company, and they should. They deserve to do well. But I think what is interesting about what you just said is how you make people feel. This last year, anytime you go through an integration or a transition, whether it be with a carrier, or whether it be with integrity, or whether it be internally, it's not always going to be easy street. And I think we all want it to be, because we're salespeople and we just want life to be easy.
We just want to fix things.
We do. We want to fix things. And I found myself last year, I couldn't just fix things overnight because I was trying to make everybody happy. And finally I started reading this book, and this book's been really good. It's When Making Others Happy Makes You Miserable. And it said people pleasers are the biggest liars. And I was like, I am not a liar. That is one thing I'm not. But then I started reading the book, and I am, because I tell people I'll do things when I really don't have the time. And then I'm stressed out, and I'm tired, and I get grumpy. And I had a decision. I could have said no.
Right.
But I didn't. And so I've learned in this last 6 months especially that people might get mad at me because I say no, but they're not going to hate me. And I think as agents,
we also do a disservice to them because they have a problem. You say, I'll take it on. They let it go. Now there's a deficit because that didn't happen. They still have the problem.
Yep.
And now that was your fault.
Yep.
That was your fault for
and I had to own that. And that was hard for me to own it because, when you're a people pleaser, you think you're the kindest person on the planet.
And you also think you're the best qualified to handle everyone's problem all the time.
Right.
Right.
You just think you can fix everything. You're a fixer.
Right.
And so I've taken a step back, and I've really looked at what people have said over the last couple of years, and I'm really trying to do a lot of self-reflection so I can do self-improvement. And I will say that's been the greatest thing for me with integrity is Brian Adams told me, he says, Gaylan, you're a trainer. You're like Sean said in the video. Nobody can get agents fired up like Gaylan. You're a coach. That's what you need to be doing. And you've done this other thing your whole life, and you want to be in it because you don't want mistakes. You don't want problems. But the truth of the matter is the reason you're feeling uncomfortable and stressed is because you still feel responsible for that. You need to share that responsibility for others and trust them as you can, because you said they're good at it. Let them be good at it. And I think that was the best advice I could have been given. And that's one thing I'll say. It's been great having him as a mentor. We've been friends for a long time.
Right.
But having him now as a mentor and somebody I can talk to and somebody that'll say, hey, this is what you were called to do. This is what you do great. You're a leader. Lead.
Right.
And let other people be the leaders they are. And I think that's kind of what you do.
What does that mean for you specifically? Like, how does that change your day-to-day on the ground level?
So I find myself smiling a whole lot more. I find myself excited about getting up.
Yeah.
I find myself excited about going and doing what I want to do. And when I see agents,
things that you've gotten off of your plate before, like specifically?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like the day-to-day, Shauna in our office does a great job of operations. We graduated all of our direct consumer agents to independent brokerage. That's been great to see them be able to get out and do what they can excel at. We are now creating that same concierge type service that we had with our DTC for our brokers. And I'm excited about what Shauna's building there and with Sean, because Sean is fantastic at it. There's nobody that knows Medicare or contracting or anything that goes on with carriers like Sean does.
No.
And Taylor and I are very, very proud of them. I mean, it's really hard some days to be, just with your people every day and tell them how proud you are, but I am. I'm very proud of them. And I think the growth in our organization, we've got Scotty that's now Sean's right-hand person, and Scotty's starting to really climb the ranks. And so I'm just very, very excited about what I'm seeing.
And so that frees you up to do, what would you say?
Ancillary training.
You're training,
so many,
agents, you're
so
out
that's a
making
good question. So many of our agents don't insure their clients. They enroll them. And I'm out there showing agents and call centers and street agents, face-to-face agents, career agents. Don't just enroll. Protect them. Be that hero that when you signed that insurance exam, when you passed it, that you were going to do the best fiduciary interest of your client that you could do.
Right.
And I'm seeing that happen every day, and I couldn't be more proud of this industry. That's one thing I want to stay clear before we leave today is I'm very proud to be in this industry. I'm very proud of this industry. We've just got a few little things we got to fix.
I agree. What would you say they are?
I think the first thing we got to fix is communication. We've got social media. We need to be better communicators out there. We need to build people up instead of tearing people down. I think carriers need to listen to the front lines more. And I'm helping that happen. I think NAHU is a big focus of mine right now. It wasn't for the majority of my career, but because of Danielle Roberts, I'm understanding I'm needed there. I'm seeing a lot of changes being made there. I'm proud to be working with NAHU. But that's pretty much it.
Is Danielle done coming to the conferences? She said this month she was going to stop.
I drug
finally
her
got
out.
to meet her. I got to meet her the first time just recently.
I drug her out, talking to a lot of people. She's been a great, what's that word? A great inspirer of people this last 12 months.
And I didn't know she was a life coach.
Mm-hmm. And I love that about her.
Her sideline, yeah.
I love that about her.
That's obviously what contributes to her success in training agents and all of that as well.
She's a great role model. She's a great role model for me. She calls me her role model or mentor. Yeah. She's a great role model for me. Yeah. I think it's awesome when you start looking around and you see students teaching you. I mean, it's like Sean and Shauna. I mean, they were trying to teach me some really hard lessons last year, and I finally took a step back, wrote down what they were saying, and I really started reflecting on those, and I've started making positive change, and they've started seeing it.
Well, you were talking about the upline and the downline, how those words don't work, because in the end, we're all people. One of the hardest times of my life, it was people that I trained at one point who I went to lean on and became my best friends, picked me up when I was down and all that. They were my upline at that point or whatever, and in the end, you're all just partners. When you realize... And we can look at it industry-wide or office-wide or whatever else. We're on this boat together, and it's going to go up or down. We can compete inside this boat, but it's going to either go up or down, and it's going to go that way.
And
together.
I think it's really important that you look at the word partner, what it means. Yeah. And I think it basically means you have a part to fulfill in that relationship. And every day, what I've tried to start asking myself right now is, am I fulfilling that part? If someone were to take Brandon Todd to the side of the room and say, okay, tell me what you really feel about Gaylan, is it going to be positive? That's really what my goal is right now, is that when I partner with people, that I'm becoming a part that they see as a value. And that's really what I do every day now. And I like it. And I really love it. And I plan on doing this till the day I go in the ground. My dad used to say, we all come in this world the same way and we're all going out the same way.
So you're not going to retire? You're not riding off in the sunset with all your millions and going off and doing anything?
Brian Adams has said, we want you here as long as you want to be here. And that's what I want to do.
Well, if you're free to do what you love, I mean, unless you have something else. The idea of retirement, you're talking to someone who lived in the islands for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Kind of neat, kind of fun, but really, when you miss that connection with a group of people who are changing other people's lives and doing the things that the industries can give you. You can change your role, you can do all that, but I mean, what are we going to do when we retire? Play golf, watch soap operas, or whatever they do now? Watch Netflix?
You can live brain dead.
Yeah.
You can't live heart dead.
Yeah.
And I always want to do things with my heart. And I've always done that my entire career. There were happy times, there were bad times, there were sad times, there were good times. Everybody's had that roller coaster. But I can tell you right now, it's probably the happiest time professionally I've ever had in my life. Personally, I'm working on it. I want to be there for my grandchildren, my children. You know, I consider Shauna as much a child as I do Sean, because when they got married, biblically, she became my child.
Right.
And she was my child before they got married, because I just wanted that relationship with her, and I worked hard at it. And, you know, relationships are hard. I mean, because you change, and when you change, your dynamic in a relationship changes. But when you know the person's heart, you know they'll eventually come back to being that person, and that's what I rely on.
That core thing that they are. So that's what I really was interested in, because you seem to me, and I've known you for a long time, you've always been driven, you've always been warm, but you seem to have a little glow about you the last couple times I've seen you. That's, you've always had it, but it's even more so now.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what those closest to you see about that as well, if they're seeing what I see from an outsider's perspective, and what you would attribute that to.
So I probably would say that the closest to me and my family, because we've worked together, you know, they've had to deal with a lot of the brunt of the integration. So they probably, I'm not saying that they don't care about my glow, but they probably are so distracted that that's just not resonating with them right now.
No.
And maybe it is. I've not asked them, but I think, you know, in any relationship, there's this time and a place where you have like a breakdown, and not a nervous breakdown, but a breakdown in communication. And I think with my husband and I, COVID was hard on us. We had never lived together or been in the same house for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we kind of now are in reparation phase with me back doing what I love to do. I'm able to be what I've originally been in our marriage, which is the happier person. You know, I went through a dark spot in our marriage, and my husband wasn't used to that, and he didn't know how to deal with it. And then likewise, I did the same thing with
playing the role you were supposed to play.
Yeah,
right?
and I did the same thing with Sean and Shauna. I was in a dark spot, so I wasn't that, you know, happy-go-lucky bounce-back person. And so I think they're starting to see that again, and I think they like that, and they're starting to see me come back to who I was and who I need to be. But I think a lot of that's attributable to the fact that I finally made a decision that I'd been thinking about for over 6 years. And it finally happened, and so that decision now's been done, and now we're
something you can share?
The integrity, you know. I mean, I started talking to them 6 years ago, and
really?
You know, and there were trials and tribulations with partners and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, we got through all of that, which I can't really talk about, but we got through it. We came through it on the other side, happier and healthier and better than we ever had, because God came in and showed up in a big way and made that work. And now we're just all trying to get through the day-to-day, but I think we're at a place right now. My son said it best the other day. He said, you know, we finally have gotten this business thing under control. Now it's time to just really work on the personal relationships. And I think that we're doing that. It wasn't like we hated each other, because we don't. It just wasn't, we just weren't, we all had our own thing we were doing. So to be a family when we're all stressed out was really difficult.
Right.
But that's the great thing about family. You can put family on hold and know they're going to be there when you're done with this. And that's what's so great about my family.
You almost have to have a skill set. Like when I first started in the insurance business, right after college, still living at my parents' house before I got my first apartment for a couple months. And when Dad and I got the office, we'd go to the office, we'd come back home and eat dinner. And I'd still be talking business.
Yeah.
And he's like, stop. We go to the office, we talk, we come home, we're a family.
Yeah.
And
we had that for the longest
time.
Right? But we lost our way. Yeah. And we found ourselves all talking about business, whether it was Dan being the violator of it, or Sean being the violator of it, or Shauna or me, we lost our way. But we all committed to going back to that. And we only really talk about business now if it's urgent. And like the other night, we were all at the House of Blues. We didn't talk about business. I want to get to a place where we don't have to talk about business.
What I found works is there's time and a place for everything. And like if you can just go here and be a family, you can go here and not do it.
Yeah.
But now my father's retired, and so he doesn't even want to know anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, at first it was kind of, then it's like, oh, it's too complicated at this point. I've moved on.
Well, and there's some things I can't wait to get to know.
My brother and I are completely separated, and I exited the other company, and he owns that completely.
Yeah.
And our relationship's never been better.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, we're like, he's the brother I never had ever.
Nice.
Now that we've exited that business relationship.
That's what I'm looking for is, I think that they've gotten used to what my role is now, and I'm still CEO of the company, and I still will be CEO of the company. But I think now that we've gotten a lot of things that I was just intricate in. I mean, I started the call center. I managed the call center. I handled the call center. But I think now that that's kind of moved out of the way, and it's just the day-to-day, there's things that they'll ask me about, and they're really good about getting counsel from me on the things that they want to hear me on. But I think now we have more of a direct path. It's not convoluted. It's not confusing. It's very much more of a directive, and I love being involved in the marketing side of it. That's what I really love. That's what I'm good at.
I think that's your glow. And that's why I was asking that question, because I only see you at these conferences. I see you out here when you're in your element. Yeah. And I see that. And that's why I was wondering if that's totality, and it looks like it's freeing you up to do some of the work. Some of the work on a personal level within your own family as well, right?
I love people. My family is super important. It's always been important to me. Not just my immediate family, but my extended family is incredibly important to me. And I have a lot of family. I have a lot of friends that are just as close to our family as we all are. And I want to spend more time with them. I think losing my dad at 52 and my mom at 72 has started making me realize my husband's 69. And when he passed the age my dad died, I was like, oh, we're living on gravy right now.
That, yeah.
And then when I passed the age of 52, it's like, okay, I made that milestone. And, we've just never really had a lot of people live long in our family. And so I just want to appreciate what time I have left. I want to live it to the fullest. I want to spend that time taking my grandkids and my kids to places that they've never been. But now my kids, they really are at the place where they want to go do things that are not like the big Four Seasons. They've got them a travel trailer.
They're over that?
Well, yeah. I don't think they're over it, but I think they want to do other things. And they're very close to their family, and I love that. And they include us in things, and they do things on their own, and we're starting to really, I think, find our groove in this second part of all of our lives. And I think that I used to always see that as failure. If I wasn't invited to this, if I wasn't invited to that, I failed them somehow. And in this self-reflection, I have figured out that that's just their life. That's just part of their life.
Invited?
Like to a dinner here or there, or to, an outing. I felt like that they were mad at me. I always got to this place where everybody was mad at me, because that's kind of what this business does. If you're not invited to everything or included in everything, you feel like you've done something wrong. Right. Well, the truth of the matter is we've not done anything wrong, and neither did they. They're just living their life, and we're living ours. That's right.
Well and all that.
So I had to go through that.
You even asked where have I been and all that. For so long, I had so many things going on with both of my businesses and all of this that I didn't need to pick up the phone. We needed to work on with our people. We needed to work with our systems. We needed to work with our clients. But I didn't need Gaylan Hendricks. Sorry.
No, you did.
But we talked about something a while ago that I want to get into. I didn't need Gaylan Hendricks. I didn't need industry people. I didn't need all that. I needed my own business. But you opened this up to me a while ago, and I'll just say it out loud. I was damn lonely.
Yeah.
I did not know how lonely I was until I got back out here.
Yeah.
Because when you're always the boss, when you're always the man, and you're always in charge, you don't get that genuine connection with other people who are doing the same thing as you are.
And
I
understand
tell that
you.
to my people, you need to meet other agents, other people that are in your world. I never did it for myself.
Well, and that was a lesson I got last year because I was there. I felt very lonely. I felt like there wasn't really anybody on my level or in my world or had the same stuff I was going through that could really understand everything. I really couldn't talk to my husband about it. I really didn't want to burden my kids with it. I didn't want to talk to my business partner about it because I felt like it was a very personal thing and that I was failing at certain things. And I found myself lonely, so I got a counselor. And my counselor told me the only thing I was doing wrong was not trusting those closest to me. He said, if you'll trust those closest to you, you'll come out of this funk. And I'm coming out of that, and I feel like I've graduated. I mean, August 27th is D-Day for me. Because August 27th last year is when it started. So August 27th last year, I started being in this new role.
Okay.
And I had to figure it out.
Okay.
You know, and I felt like I was on an island.
Yeah.
Sean and Shauna were going through integration. They didn't have time for me. They were so busy. And then Dan was trying to figure out, okay, so is she going to lose it today or is she going to be this happy person today? And so it was just an up and down, and I was just trying to get good. But at Christmas time, I found my groove again. And I started, like I do a lot of things in my life, when I hit that skid, I really start asking God to just stay in front of me, you know, meet me every morning, tell me what I need to do, tell me who I need to pray for. So I just started praying for everybody in my life, and I started praying for hearts to soften, and I started praying for my heart to soften. Because sometimes we always want to pray for everybody else's heart to soften, but we don't pray for us to soften.
Right.
So I've spent the last 3 months praying for my heart to soften towards others and their tribulations.
Right.
I found out I was being very selfish this last year. I was only worried about my tribulation. I was only worried about what I was going through. I wasn't worried about what everybody else was going through. And so when I finally turned the camera off me, per se, and turned it on to everybody else, I realized that less is more. My husband goes, when you get in these, you just want to ramble on and on and on. And I honestly don't know what's more important. And I was getting that from my kids as well. And so I finally figured out it needs to be baby steps. It needs to be less is more. And I still mess up. But I'm going to keep working on that every day.
Well, if you focus on your problems, what is your life about? It's about your problems, right?
Yeah.
Focus on other people's problems. You naturally, especially someone with your helper mentality, thinks about solutions and what it could be like, and all of a sudden that becomes your reality in yourself.
Yeah.
People think that our self-analysis is real, and it's actually just an energy that we need to clear out.
A speaker said this yesterday, analysis is paralysis. And that's where I found myself. I was analyzing everything to the nth degree. And I found out Satan was attacking me in ways that I really thought he was attacking others, but he was attacking me because he was making me see them in different light. And I think the glow you see in me is Jesus.
Yes.
I really do. I feel like I'm where I need to be. I feel like that being at these conferences, even though I've been tired, I slept 11 hours last night, is that
I need to do more than that tonight.
I feel good about this life. But my mentality right now is to help people like you. I mean, you may not need me helping in your business. You may just need a helping friend. Yeah. And I want to be available for that. Yeah. And I want to show people what's happened in my life and not analyze everything like you said. I found last year I analyzed everything.
Can I back up just a second?
Yeah.
So you got the big payday. You got the big coup de grace, what everyone thinks their business is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, Gaylan isn't the Gaylan she was anymore because a new role is ahead of her. You're not going in that same direction. Mm-hmm. You weren't popping champagne. You're not telling me you were popping champagne.
No, I was popping champagne.
Oh, you were, but that's not what the champagne isn't what you think it is. Did you feel a sense of disappointment in that? for a time? I mean, even though you know the long run's good,
so that's
that payday not there?
That is a fantastic question, and nobody has asked me that. So it's really a strange answer. I never was more secure and excited about where my business was going as I was when we joined Integrity.
Right.
But what I struggled with was the mechanics of it. I struggled with not having the control to when somebody was hurting to be able to just solve the problem on this integration part of it. But I also didn't know that help was there for me to ask. I didn't, because I've never asked anybody, just like I told you,
You were always the top of the food chain.
I fixed it.
Yeah.
I fixed it. Top of the food chain, right. And I felt like I was the fixer. And when I didn't feel like the fixer anymore, that's what caused the anxiety for me. Because the one thing I've always tried to be is be a good mom. Even though I wasn't available all the time, I always could be the mom that could provide the fix if I needed it. And I found myself, I'm a mom to a lot of these agents. I'm a mom, you hear it, I'm Medicare mom. Yeah, I'm Medicare mom more than I am Queen of the Bundle. But I'm used to being the fixer, and I think that's what caused my anxiety. I could not fix it. I could not take care of everybody, everything of every moment. And so then I took that as me failing. And this is probably the first time I've talked openly about this. Some of my family knows bits and pieces, but it's probably good for everybody to hear it because everybody knows how transparent I am. But I found myself in a place where I was like, God, I'm going to have to relinquish control for the first time in my life, and I'm going to fail at it because I am not good at relinquishing control. Because when I relinquish control, and I think a lot of this comes from growing up with parents who did the best they could at providing for us, but there was never enough money. There was never enough resources. And my mom and dad were the most loving parents on the planet. And they would give the shirt off their back to somebody, but we would have to sell Coke bottles to go get a chicken the next day for dinner. And so I think that stressed me out. I never wanted my kid to feel stressed.
So your mission in life was to control things to the point that you could provide and they wouldn't feel that.
Yes.
And that's been your whole thing. And that's what drove you your entire career. That's
it. And that's what absolutely, and Brandon, that's good. You need to be an interviewer. No. I mean, yeah, no. Yes, you're a good interviewer. No, I never said that out loud, but I think that is absolutely what it was. That's been my MO. When I borrowed that money out of my son's piggy bank, it really wasn't borrowing it. I basically stole the money out of his piggy bank to buy him a pizza. And I remember waking up the next morning feeling the absolute worst. It was like I was going backwards instead of forwards. And so when I prayed that day for God to just get us out of this debt, because we were living off credit cards and we had been doing maximum out of pocket, I literally was like, God, if you'll solve this problem, I will speak your name every day. And I have. That's one promise I have kept. And I was mad at God because he stole my father. You know, he stole my father, the best man on this planet, and these heathens are walking the streets every day. And I was devastated. I was mad. I was angry.
How did he die?
Of cancer. He was diagnosed with cancer in 1989. He was given 6 weeks to 3 years. He lived 5 weeks, 5 days. And when I took that money to buy that, I was like, okay, I'm taking this under my own control. My husband had hit a skid where he was depressed because, you know, he had sued the guy I was working for. The guy basically put him on a list of, you know, he's bad, you don't hire him. And so Dan finally ended up finding a job and was good. But in the 90s, it was hard to find work unless you knew somebody. But Dan finally got a job doing what he wanted to do. And then I got the job that I was doing and I loved. And I found out, you know, I'm good in sales. I always thought I was great at operations, but I'm going to be great in sales because I was great in sales before I got in operations. but on a smaller level. And when that man came in and bought that annuity from me and never saw him again, sent the policies to the house of his wife, and we were almost out of debt. We got the $7,000. I just told this story last night to some agents. And then a couple of months later, Dan got the call that the lawsuit had been settled between him and the guy we had worked for, and he got $10,000. Well, we were out of debt, and we never carried another credit card debt from that day forward. And you're right. That's what controlled me, and that's what drove me, and that's what I always thought if I quit working, we would be back in that situation. And honest to God, I still feel that way. I feel like if I quit working, I could be in that situation again, especially with the bond market the way it is. And everybody talks about big paydays. You know, that's one thing that you don't talk about, what your payday was, because you're under NDAs on it. But at the end of the day, a big payday is nothing if it's not earning interest or paying. So you have to keep working. You have to keep building. And my husband and my goal is always to never be a burden on Sean financially. We know he's already going to have burden because he's an only child. But he has a good wife who loves us, and she takes care of us too. And so I've got nieces that adore us. So we've got people to take care of us. But I don't want to be that financial burden. And so I'm always every day making sure that I keep spreading the word to people. You don't have to be the financial burden on your children. You need to prioritize. You need to buy the right coverages so that you're not that burden. And I'd give everything in my bank account today, talk to my mother or father one more time. I talked to my mom and dad every single day before they died. And I think that's one of the things I analyzed last year is I was like, I don't talk to my son every day. But when you work with your son every day, you know, he needs that time off. He needs to be able to just focus on his children. And I found that out in my self-reflection, is that's not anything against me. It's what he needs to do for his children, what he needs to do for his family. And we've always taught him, your wife comes first. And, you know, we've tried to live that. I'm sure there's days we've made mistakes, but we've really, on a whole, tried to really make that a priority. And she knows she can trust us. She knows she can come to us for anything. And I think that's what makes us a family.
So this next chapter you're here.
Chapter 2.
You're finding yourself. You're learning to relinquish control. Do you feel like that's starting to become a weight off?
Yes.
How far along are you on that?
Probably 10%.
So you got a journey. So this next evolution, the financials somewhat taken care of. You got the nest egg, you got the future, you got the things built up. Now you're free to work on Gaylan and her spiritual journey. Integrated within your business and how you're working that together. So you think you're about 10% in that?
I think I'm about 10%. I think my counselor would say I'm 25, but I think I'm 10%. I always under promise and over deliver. That's been the story of my life. But you know, I'm what all these women are. You know, and I tell them all that all the time. They come to me wanting to know, you know, how to do this, how to do that. And I'm like, you know, some of this stuff I'm still trying to figure out. But the stuff I know, I'll teach you. The stuff I don't, I'll tell you I don't know. But, you know, my goal is to write a book on spiritual discovery. And I think all agents, not just women, all agents need a spiritual discovery. Whether they're a believer or not, they need a spiritual discovery.
Is a path to spiritual discovery?
I do. I think
wholeheartedly believe that.
I absolutely do. And you know, and not everybody's a Christian, and I'm aware of that too. And I'm not telling everybody they have to be. I'm telling everybody there's a spiritual discovery. And I want to create a journal with that. I want people to be able to find out who you really are, where you're best served. And when I say where you're best served is how you serve. I'm best served when I'm serving the Ronald McDonald House. It creates that glow in me. When I'm speaking of Jesus, it creates that glow in me. When I see my granddaughter and my grandson come up and hug me and tell me they love me, I'm served. You know, having my son and daughter-in-law yesterday tell me I did a great job on the stage, that's being served. And it fills my soul. It makes me a happier person. And, you know, I'm a firm believer in that God's never promised us happiness, but He's promised us joy. And I'm just trying to find my joy. I've always been a joyful person on the outside, but I want to find more joy on the inside. I think that's what I'm meant to do.
Well, maybe when you talk about joy, that's that over bubbling, just it flows through you, all that. There's also a persona that you can put on. Hey, everybody, how you doing? You're the best at that. And it's not that it's disingenuous, but there's something in you, there's a part of you that you're amplifying when you do that. My dad always called it being on stage.
Well, I feel I owe that to people.
That. Right.
You know, when they come here and they're spending their hard-earned money, because not everybody's in the situation financially we are. Some of the people here drain their bank account.
We don't come in your pajamas and like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
No, you got to bring your best for
some
people.
of the people have drained their bank account. No, some of the people drain their bank accounts. They've put it on credit card to be here to learn, and I want to make sure that when they meet me, they get me, the full me, and I can always sleep later.
No.
You know.
Well, we're going to wrap this up. This has been great.
Thank you.
And I could literally talk here. The stage could go out. They could pull this on, and we would still be talking.
Yeah.
We got a lot to catch up on, and it's great to see you.
Well, like I said, it's good to have you back.
It's
good to have you back.
What's the one thing that you want agents to know who are starting a business right now? We'll end it with that.
What I want them to say it again. I want to make sure I got the question.
If an agent's starting their business right now,
what's
the one thing you would tell them?
I would tell them, do not take advances if you don't have to. For sure, don't borrow money from somebody you don't know. Make sure that you are smart with your investments. Don't start paying somebody a bunch of money for a secret sauce when you don't have any money coming in. Go earn money. Go to work. There's plenty of us that will talk to you for free. You'll talk to people. I'll talk to people. There are people that have made their way that will give you that time of day. Then once you've got money in the bank, if there's something you want to go invest in, then go invest in it. You always should invest in yourself. But when you come to these big things, you're going to see so many people that you can get free advice from. Do that first. And then if you've got to take an advance, take the smallest amount of advances you can. Companies that'll do 0%, go with them on the advance. But try not to pay to borrow money.
Right. And I would, there's no end of advice that you can get, but you only really need one mentor. And if you're trying to look for advice and all that, it's actually not working. What you need to do is get the reps in. You need to get the skills. And the only way you're going to develop the skills is through repetition. I just talked this morning on the panel. It was when you tell someone new, I was like, well, before you buy a lead, I'm up there with a bunch of lead vendors. I said, go get a list of names and phone numbers. You can get them for 2 to 10 cents depending on where you buy them from. And go do that.
It's just like door knocking.
Go do that until you're good. We've ruined the business where people don't have the skill set you get in cold calling. The people I always meet who make it started out cold calling. The people who didn't start out cold calling.
Yeah.
The skill set you get there is all you'll ever need in this whole business. And that's why you're here. That's why I'm here and all that. It's hard days. It's hard days, but that's when you become who you become.
Yep.
And those skills you get to keep, and they serve you forever. So there's no shortcut to it.
No. Thank you, brother, for the interview. You've been amazing. You're a great interview. God bless you, too. I appreciate that. And he is blessing me every single day. And I see a little bit improvement every day. So
I want you to call me sometime and tell me how you're doing. We'll stay in touch.
I will. I'm going to give you a hug.
That's what I was up doing.
All right. Thanks.
Y'all take care. God bless.
Thanks, everybody.